All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. This week we got for you Antonio Brown, one of the greatest on-paper receivers of all time.
Keyword on paper.
On paper, yeah. I thought I'd make a point of that. Also, Ryan Fitzpatrick retiring after 17 seasons, the epitome of what was it you said, Ricardo?
Epitome of,
just one big meh. With all that being said, thanks for tuning in. I'm Jose.
I'm Ricardo.
And this is RJ Talks. All right, Antonio Brown was released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past year. He played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was picked up in the 6th round, pick number 195 in 2010 out of Central Michigan. Mm-hmm. This guy at the very beginning of his career, stats-wise, was looking like pretty much the next Jerry Rice if he had continued that pace that he was on.
Yeah, he was. He's one of those guys that like it really all fell apart for him ego-wise. It just consumed him to the point where it ended up costing him his NFL career. Because at the beginning, Jose, when he got drafted, he seemed like your regular hard worker, who just like wanted a chance, wanted to prove himself and do good, and he was doing a great job. But it was right after he got his first big contract after his rookie year when they paid him, where he started getting the ego of the guy, and he really, really fell in love with himself.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of that, it seems like a lot of that had to do with just the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers organization was treating him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they were putting him up on this pedestal constantly. Yeah. And he was the one. Yeah. He was the guy for that entire team. And the fact that he was picked up in the 6th round, pick number 195, and I just figured this out today. As soon as I found that out, had he not had the character issues that he had, he would have been another great. I mean, just not as great as, say, Tom Brady is right now, but he would have been on pace to become one of the greatest players of all time.
He would have definitely, and he would have made the Hall of Fame for sure. Like, he would have been one of those, like, no doubt, no questions about it, Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He became too in love with his stats, and this became early on when he was getting more field as a receiver. Because normally, Jose, to people who don't know, when you're a rookie in the NFL, if you're not like a guaranteed starter, how do you make a team? Special teams.
Right.
So you play special teams the whole time, and then you get some chances to play wide receiver.
So that's why his stats in the beginning of his career are particularly low.
Yeah.
You don't see really big numbers.
Yeah, no, and it happens with everyone. So pretty much the way it worked around it is that some people might not know this, but a lot do. Mike Wallace, the main number 1 receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the time, really good guy, really big of a deep threat. Guys like 6'3", could burn corners down deep whenever he wanted the chance to.
Yeah, he was an actual deep threat.
Yeah, he was in argument with the Pittsburgh Steelers for a new contract, and that's what was going on. He wanted a new contract. They didn't want to pay him, and they're like, you know what? We got a younger guy who can give us equal production, like we could see him. He works hard. He's going to be an asset to the team. Why don't we just pay him? He'll be a little cheaper.
Definitely, yeah.
And that's where like the ego infused began. And you hear this from former teammates. Ryan Clark, he sent out numerous times. He said, he's like, you guys pay this guy, you'll create a monster. He called it before everybody else. This was back in like 2011, 2012. Like,
so it was Antonio Brown's 2nd year in the NFL.
Yeah. Like he called it. He knew who he was about to become. Mm-hmm. And we were all fooled for a while because of the numbers, how he played.
Right.
He played unbelievable.
Right.
There's no question about it. Like when he was on the field, he was your guaranteed number 1 receiver, and he was becoming consistently with stats.
There was no real reason to look away from him as far as just his on-field performance went.
Yeah, no, so. There's no reason at all, and I want everyone to remember stats, because we'll bring this up later. Is like he produced some really great stats as a receiver, and he was a bona fide number 1. And with Ben Roethlisberger, he found like I don't want to say a rebirth, but he was becoming up there as like elite quarterbacks, because he had Antonio Brown, and then when you added Le'Veon Bell, his running back, into the mindset, like they became a really great offense.
Right. So when you have support on the team to for the leader of the team, which was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Especially for an aging Ben Roethlisberger later on in his career.
Yeah.
That's not to say that he wasn't always bad. He was a very good quarterback. He was up there.
Yeah.
Right. He was one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league during his time. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that just age caught up with him, and he stayed in the league for a little too long. So the fact that Le'Veon Bell came in and the fact that Antonio Brown came in, those two were solid supporters for his team, and he was able to be an elite game manager by that point. Right. He still passed the ball. Don't get me wrong. He still had the arm that he did. He just wasn't as strong as he was in his prime.
Well, no, it's because and the problem with not to veer too much off subject, but with Ben Roethlisberger, he got hit a lot. That's what it was. He got hit a lot, and he didn't take care of his body.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unlike Kurt Warner, Kurt Warner was definitely still stayed up there, even though he was the literal punching bag of the league at the time that he was playing.
No, but he was.
But just to go back to Antonio Brown over here, in 2015 alone, you have 136 receptions and you have 195 targets for 1,834 yards. So
10 touchdowns.
And 10 touchdowns for that year. So those are the biggest numbers that you see in his career thus far. So you see him with Tampa Bay as well. Obviously, he did start later in the season in 2020, and his stats don't look that good, but he still had a Super Bowl ring. So his stats over here are for that 2020 season with Tampa Bay, where they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. That was 45 receptions for 61 targets, and he had 483 yards under his belt, as well as 4 touchdowns. Yeah, and then in 2018, traveling back to his last year with Pittsburgh, he had 15 touchdowns in that season. Yeah, so the guy looked incredible. But that's when all of that. But that's going back to our previous point in our intro. It's not just about what you're doing it's not just about the numbers that you're putting up, right? It is about the attitude that you bring to the field, and it is about the leadership that you could bring to the field. That's not to say that he is the bona fide leader of the Pittsburgh Steelers or any team for that matter.
Yeah.
The quarterback is,
Yeah.
right? The quarterback is the on-field commander. They are the ones that are controlling the pace for the offense, right? So as soon as you start to see somebody else taking the reins, anybody could be a leader on that team just by doing their own job very well, right? And Antonio Brown did his job very well, but his focus was not on the team. The focus was on himself, and it constantly was. But of course, we looked away from it. We turned a blind eye to it because, number one, we either didn't know any better, or two, we just looked at the numbers straight on and we just said, hey, you know what? This guy's doing his job, obviously, so who are we to question it?
No, and I can make an argument later on that Mike Tomlin might be the most patient coach of all time. After we go over some of the ridiculousness that this guy goes through. But
for 9 seasons, he dealt with him for 9 seasons.
For 9 seasons, dude, and it's just production after production. Like he put up numbers. He was a great player, but that's all he did. Like, you never got the sense that his guys would follow him. You never got the sense that he would do whatever it took to win.
Right.
He's one of those guys like, I'll do what it takes to win as long as I get my 15 targets, my 10 catches, 150 catching yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns.
It sounds very familiar to another quarterback that we had talked about a couple of weeks, or I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago now, Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although his focus is not on stats, his focus is on money. I will do this as long as I get paid.
Yeah.
And then now you see somebody like Antonio Brown, I will do this as long as I get my numbers, as long as I get my targets, and I go home after that. It's the rest, and then I have the rest of my time. I do whatever I want.
Yeah, and a lot of Steelers fans, I remember during those years, they were going to say like, "Oh, we're going to win the Super Bowl. We got the bumblebees, the quarterback, the running back, and the receiver. We got this."
Yep.
But they ran into one team and one team only who knew how to take away their weaknesses, because they realized that the Pittsburgh Steelers had to win one way thanks to their receiver. Can you guess what team knocked them out of the playoffs year after year?
Who was that one team? Why don't you remind me, Ricardo? Who is that one team?
I don't know. It might be the Patriots. Just saying. So, okay.
Yeah, I already knew that. No, I just wanted to throw that back to you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, but that's the thing about New England, is that they'll figure out what you do great and what you suck at doing, and they'll force you to beat them by making sure you do what you suck at doing. If you beat us by what you suck at doing, props to you. You know?
Yeah, you adjusted. You adapted.
You beat us.
Right.
And this goes into the fact with Antonio Brown that he cannot handle a game where he's not the main star, where he doesn't get his targets, where he doesn't get his receptions and his touchdowns, which would lead to interceptions from Big Ben, because Antonio's like, hey, get me the ball. I am always open. But Bill Belichick's no dumbass. He always has Antonio under bracket coverage. Fun fact for people who don't know on defense. Bracket coverage, what it pretty much means is that you have a defender in front of the receiver at all times, pressing him, pushing him, then you have a safety over the top to protect him.
Right.
So that way that the first defender can be as physical as they want with the receiver without worrying that they're going to get burned deep because you got backup. So that's what bracket coverage means, and he had Antonio bracketed every time they saw it, and you saw it in the results of those games. There's a reason why Tom Brady's undefeated against Ben Roethlisberger in the playoffs. They knew how to beat him. And the Steelers never adjusted, and that's what it was.
And as soon as you put that kind of pressure on the star on the star receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben is then forced to think of other options. But what if those other options are not as clear? What if those other options are not as reliable? Antonio Brown was the most reliable receiver on that team at that time.
Yeah.
So as soon as you're putting pressure on him, you're putting pressure on the quarterback. To throw that ball. And of course, that's evidence of the fact that he may not be able to handle pressure that well, Ben Roethlisberger, right? So because he only knew that one way.
I'll give him credit. I would say he could have learned a different way, but when you got a guy like that on your team, you're kind of fighting forced pressure. When things aren't going well and you're trying to win, you don't want to, okay, my guy's covered, but like he's been my guy, compared to like this third string receiver that might be a little open, but we'll see. Like, you're kind of stuck in that situation where you're like, how am I forced winning when I'm stuck? Like things aren't going well, I should give him a chance, or try to play another way. Yeah. And it doesn't help when the guy who wants the ball is constantly talking his ear off and talking your ear off the whole time. Yeah. So like that I'll give Ben credit in this. Like he could handle some pressure, but when you're forced to make a decision, and it's very hard to make that decision because your teammate might not let you to, like you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because if you go another way and it's not working, be like, why aren't you throwing it to me? I'm the number one guy. Right. But you throw it to him and it isn't working. Why are you forcing it to him? It's a rock and a hard place. You're forcing it to the receiver, or you're not giving your receiver enough targets and then plenty of options.
He took too much risk in the things that he was doing and the decisions that he had made for the team. Yeah. In the play, and your weaknesses come to the forefront in the playoffs.
That's in any sport.
Yeah, in any sport. And just football in particular, it's the best teams in the league that are going up against each other, and only the two best teams, or rather one of the luckiest teams, is going to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah. Right. So either way, when you see the Pittsburgh Steelers under all this kinds of pressure to get it to their star wide receiver at the time, I could understand why somebody like Ben Roethlisberger would want to take the gambles that he did.
And I'll give him credit, the Steelers. Before Antonio was released, you never heard that much drama coming off the field from them. They did a very good job of internalizing that to their locker room. And with that being said, so people are like, okay, Antonio, like he's a great guy, like he gets targets, like yeah, he's cocky, but whatnot, and like, but you don't hear teammates complain.
They're able to brush it away. Yeah. It's the classic. He's one of the great athletes. So he's excused in a way of being cocky or just having an attitude, right? Because he produces on the field. Yeah. He backs those words up.
And to give him credit, he was producing on a pace like Jerry Rice. He was not Jerry Rice.
No, he wasn't.
In his prime, he was great. He could have been an all-time great. Like he was amazing.
And had he kept that track, he very well
would have been. He would have been all-time great. Everybody would remember him for what he did on the field, and as opposed to what he's sadly doing right now. Right. But we'll get to that in the next segment later on. Let's still stay specifically with the football. Right. Guy was a all-pro receiver, Pro Bowl receiver, like constantly year after year, making his targets. And he was a very, very effective route runner. He wasn't necessarily the fastest guy, but he was shifty and quick enough, and his route running was fantastic.
So you see, somebody like Cooper Kupp, right? We could compare him to Cooper Kupp. Yeah. We did talk about Cooper Kupp in the first in our first episode. Yeah. To where he doesn't run the sharpest routes. He's not a Justin Jefferson for the Vikings, right? But the skill in his route running is his reading of the defenses in real time. So when he's coming off the line and he sees, for example, a safety shifting right, he's going to start running left, right? So he's basically just going to bait the safety, right? That is standing in the backfield, and he's fast enough to outrun any slot corner if he is lined up in the slot, right? Even on the outsides, Cooper Kupp is still a fast guy, but even if he's not fast enough to beat that corner that's blocking him, he's able to make a way. Well, and it seems like that's what Antonio Brown was capable of doing.
And we got to remember, dude, he was a returner too. So he was quick. Like he was not afraid to shift around the field. Like I don't know if you remember when he literally kicked a punter from Cleveland in the face. That video. Like that, he's known for that. But he was a great returner early on. But obviously, when your returner is an elite receiver, let's keep him away from returner. Keep him away from those injury possibilities. So that's why they kept him on there. And hell of an athlete, hell of a great competitor when it came to like trying to perform. Not necessarily to win, but to perform. Because he would have been happy losing, but like, hey, I didn't lose because of me. I got 150 receiving yards. I got 2 touchdowns. I got 10 catches. I'm good.
It's like, I'm paid.
I'm great.
I'm paid. I'm going home.
The world is beautiful, man. Like that's what it is.
It's never his fault. It was never his fault. It was the rest of the team's fault for losing the game had they done that. But
difference between him and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp does his stats, and he's the reason his team wins. When they lose, he's okay. Like he's not blaming his teammates. Like he very much takes responsibility. Like he has a lot of pressure on him, and he performs.
Right.
But he plays to win. He performs to win. Like if he gets the touchdowns, great, sure, whatever. But if he doesn't, all right, whatever. As long as we won. And Antonio Brown was not all about that.
No, he was not.
Not all about that.
Well, here in this next segment, we're going to be talking about some of his off-field antics. And seeing how exactly that contributes to the ego that he would bring onto the field. So do not go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
All right, folks, and we are back to Antonio Brown, his off-field antics. All right, well, also on-field, because this has to do with his football career as well.
Yes, it does.
Right, so rewinding all the way back to December 30th of 2018, Antonio Brown was then benched by the Steelers, all right, before the final week of the 2018 season.
This was a huge turning point in his career, by the way. This is what led to the downfall. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the next thing is February 19th of 2019, the Steelers agreed to trade Antonio Brown. Right, so as soon as they traded Antonio Brown, this is a huge deal. Headlines all over the place for this guy, saying that the star wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers is now leaving after what looked to be a franchise career.
And we didn't know just how we had some kind of idea. So before he got traded, Jose, I just want to bring up the benching because this is very, very important. So every football team has a banquet dinner, and every football team has special awards specifically for their team. You got like MVP, best offensive lineman, best defensive player, best rookie, stuff like that.
So these aren't across the league. It's all within their own organization. Is what you're saying.
Yes. So like each team, whether it be pro, college, or high school, do these banquets. I went to one in my high school. Like you have special awards for your teammates. This is how petty this guy was. So the year before, he got the award for best offensive player because he had the best stats and whatnot. Now, if you remember Juju Smith-Schuster, he's now with the Chiefs.
Yes.
He's next.
I know which story you're going to tell. Yep.
So this guy was a second receiver of the team. He had a phenomenal year. He had a great year. He had a Pro Bowl rookie year, and the team decided to give him the award for best offensive player of the year.
Right.
He could not take that. He got mad with Mike Tomlin. He got mad with the team. He's like, why is he getting the award? He fumbled. He literally fumbled the game away. It was because it was the last possession against the New Orleans Saints. For people who don't know, the Pittsburgh Steelers were down by 4. They needed a touchdown to win. Juju catches the ball and he literally fumbles the ball. Saints get the ball. Saints win the game.
Right.
So it happened, and he was a young player at the time. He got so mad that he decided that he would not play the last game of the season. He would not play. Like his team was on the verge of making the playoffs. They needed to win this game and another team to lose to make the playoffs.
Right.
So on one screen you got Antonio Brown with a nice firming coat on the sideline, just chilling, like acting like the world is beautiful, like everything's fine. My teammates don't need me to win the game. And then you have Juju Smith-Schuster, who's literally in pads in equipment, watching the TV, trying to see if the team that they need to lose to make the playoffs loses, and he's like excited. Antonio Brown was long gone; he left. Just to show the differences between two teammates. And this was the very beginning of the end, because it was very public of how much of a prima donna he became. Who does that, Jose? Your team is on the verge to make the playoffs, and you decide I'm not going to play because you didn't give me the award. No,
right?
No, I'm not going to do it. So he was benched, but he didn't want to go. He was benched because he didn't show up to practice the whole week.
Right.
And he just decided, no, I'm better than this. Like, you guys should know how great of a guy I am.
Right.
And this led to his benching, and this led to Mike Tomlin trading him. We did not know how insane he was at that point, but we got a little bit of a peek, a little bit of a preview.
Yeah.
A little bit, just a little bit.
And this was
very important.
This was the calm before the storm.
Yes.
For sure, so to speak.
Yes.
And leading on to that.
Yes.
All right. The rest of his off-field antics. February 19th of 2019, the Steelers agreed to trade Antonio Brown. Mind you, this was also 2 weeks after Antonio Brown was found guilty of reckless driving.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's one other thing.
Nothing bad.
Yeah. Right after that, March 7th, 2019, Antonio Brown was questioned for being traded over to the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. Right. That was in talks.
Yes.
Okay. And that was that was very short-lived.
Yes.
Right. That's a small event and everything. March 10th, 2019 is when the Raiders picked up Antonio Brown.
How beautiful life can be.
They were still in Oakland.
Yes.
At the time.
John Gruden was still the coach.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, John Gruden was still the coach. So as soon as the Raiders picked up Antonio Brown, that is when it completely hit the fan for not Antonio Brown, but the Raiders organization.
It was a whole snowball effect that led to this season as well for the Raiders. So, you don't mind? I would love to take the lead on this. This.
Oh no,
juicy.
go ahead. No. I have to pick this up too, because it's funny that you mentioned a snowball, because later on he has to do cryotherapy for his freaking feet because he froze them in France.
Yes.
So that's
yes.
So I thought I'd bring that up, but go ahead,
Yeah.
Ricardo.
Okay. So to start off, he got traded. He's happy. He's like, okay, new team, and we're like, okay. It was very sketchy what happened with your last team, but we'll see what happens. Let's see. You're going to be a number one receiver. You're going to get paid $29 million guaranteed, no matter what you do. The contract, I believe, originally was like 3 years, $60 million, $29 million guaranteed.
Right.
So he's going to get $29 million guaranteed. I'm bringing this up now because it's very key later. Okay, so head problems have been a problem with the NFL for football for as long as I can remember. Trying to limit concussions, trying to limit players getting CTE. Why am I bringing this up? Because in those years, year after year, the NFL was instituting new protective helmets for players that they had to get. Because the classic ones, makes a shock. They didn't have as much protection as the ones that do now.
Oh, really?
So you have players who were getting picky about it. So they were trying to grandfather in players like, no, I love this helmet. I'll be fair. Tom Brady was one of them. Tom Brady was one of them who loved the old helmet design because he could physically see everything because the visor and it was so wide.
Right.
He could see anything, and he hated the new one because he couldn't see as much from the sides
right.
to protect them.
Yeah.
So you have players that were complaining, but they're like, nope, you get one more year with them, and then you have to switch helmet. You have to switch helmets, because this is a new rule for the league. Every other player in the NFL is doing it. Tom Brady did it. I believe it was Aaron Rodgers who did it as well. And Antonio Brown was one of them, and he did not want to do it. He did not want to do it. He refused. He's like, I feel great with this helmet. I play great with this helmet. Why should I, Antonio Brown, one out of other NFL players, decide that I should wear a different helmet?
Yeah.
I play great with this helmet. Don't you get it? Like, I'm AB. He was gonna get suspended from the league, and it became a thing where he could not practice. And then after a couple of weeks, he finally had to cave. But it was a big drama show for the Raiders. A huge drama show. added to what happened soon after once he got back to practice with the Raiders with the helmets. Take it away, Jose.
Yeah, so right after that, August 9th, 2019 were the helmet issues that you had just mentioned.
Yeah.
And then August 3rd of 2019 was his foot troubles. Right? So Antonio Brown had, and this is from thesportingnews.com. So Brown entered a cryotherapy machine without proper footwear. For the uninitiated, cryotherapy uses extreme cold/ice to treat injuries. All right. So Brown posted a picture of his mangled feet on August 3rd, and on Hard Knocks he was shown saying, I got circumcised on my feet. And that's a quote. That is a direct quote from Antonio Brown. That's what happened. Arriving at his first Raiders camp with foot issues did not help Brown hit the ground running, so to speak.
Yeah. It's almost like, you have to wear protective, footwear in a freezing temperature place to protect the skin on your feet so that way it doesn't get cut through. Like, Jesus, dude. Like, it was like, no, it actually helps more if I do it. Like, I know better than the trainers who are trying to help me get better. Like, Jesus Christ, man.
So right after that were the helmet issues that you had just mentioned, Ricardo. Yeah. And then shortly after that, September 5th of 2019, he was skipping work. He did not show up to practice. And he was also fighting with the GM. He called the GM a cracker. That's what he called.
I think he called him Cracker Boy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that also. Yeah,
something like that.
That might be it. Either way, he used a racial slur to speak to one of his managers.
To provide some context to everyone who doesn't understand, the GM of the Raiders was a well-known television personality. He was on television for like 15 years, covering games, covering draft analysis. He was a big draft guy, and that's why the Raiders chose him, because he was a huge draft guy.
Right.
Mike Mayock for the Raiders. They chose him, so everybody knows his character. This is not someone, coach, that you're like, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. No, people have worked with him for years, so they know who he is. And he calls him a cracker. if he's so racist, dude. Like you're calling the wrong person the wrong thing, and it's just it's awful. It's just awful. And
on top of that too, Antonio Brown was also fined almost $54,000 for missing practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is something that you have to do. It's your job. Like, some players like, I'll just do whatever. Like, I'll play game day. Like, no. You're in a professional league, so 6 months out of the year, you are going to be in this world night and day.
Right.
This is the life that you have chosen. You signed on the dotted line. Keyword later, because we're going to bring it up with the contract that he messed up.
Yes.
You signed on the dotted line that you're going to complete these stipulations, and you'll get paid your money.
Exactly.
This is what you chose. Nobody forced you to sign this contract. You signed it.
Yeah. You didn't sign it at gunpoint.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So meanwhile, John Gruden is oblivious to the whole theme. He's like, no, Antonio Brown, man, he's a hard worker. Like, everything's great. Like, I don't understand what's happening in this media stuff. Like, I don't know what's going on. I talked to Antonio Brown. Things are great. He called Antonio Brown, talked to him about what's going on. And what does this moron do? He records the conversation, which is illegal in California.
Yeah.
He records the phone conversation, and he posts it for the world to hear. They're just like, what are you doing? Like, what kind of player does this? This is insane.
Just not even a player, just a person. What person does this?
What kind of person? It's ridiculous. And so, like, he does that.
As soon as the cracker incident happened, right? The Raiders were looking to release him.
Yes.
All right, and at the time they signed him for $30 million, completely guaranteed, fully guaranteed, $30 million. So they were trying to find a way to break that contract altogether.
They didn't have to find a way. Was the best part. They didn't have to do anything, mind you, Jose. If I tell you that your job says you have to show up to work on August 30th and you are guaranteed $30 million no matter what happens after that. You just have to show up to work, do what you gotta do, and your money's guaranteed like that. What would you do?
I'd show up.
You'd show up to work. Yes, you'd show up to work. You necessarily don't have to do the best thing, but you'd show up, struggle through the work. Hey, we all have jobs. We all have off days where we do not want to do anything. But if that money's on the line,
I would want to make $30 million in one day. I don't know anybody else that's listening or anybody else that, quite frankly, isn't listening. I wouldn't want to make $30 in a single day.
Yes.
But what does Antonio Brown do?
What does he do? 2 days before, and he's like, I'm not going. I'm not going to do anything. I don't care what happens. And I'm going to get my money. So the Raiders don't even have to do anything. They're like, oh yeah, he didn't show up, so he's not getting his money once he gets released. Bye-bye. So now he's upset. He's like, what do you mean you're not going to pay me my money? That was guaranteed. He's like, no, read the contract. The contract that you signed. This is guaranteed.
Not at gunpoint.
Not at gunpoint. This is guaranteed if you show up to work on this day to start off the league year. He didn't show up to work, so we're not entitled to do it. Afterwards, he tried to sue them, but like he got laughed out of it. It's like it's clear in print here in bolding, like this is what you signed. This is how you get your money.
So shortly after all that, September 7th of 2019, the Raiders released Antonio Brown, and then I believe it was that very same day, the Patriots signed it.
Yes.
Signed it.
Yes, and he decided that he was gonna post the videos like, I'm free, what? And everyone was like, you're happy that you lost $30 million? Like that's what your main concern is? I'm free of this team that oppressed me and tried to pay me $30 million if I just showed up to work. That is my mindset. I may be. And then you have these fans that are like, yeah, you go, AB. You don't let the man hold you down. You do what you got to do. And everyone's like, these people don't have the money to pay you. The people who have money to pay you are your bosses. Don't listen to them. But he decides to listen to them. So God bless him.
Yeah, it's like he's running a Twitch account.
Yeah. You
give me $30 million through a Twitch account.
Yeah. No, okay, so you know the details of what happened with the Patriots, right? Or do you want me to go through?
Just go ahead and go through this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady, the GOAT, best player of all time.
Greatest of all time. That's right.
He was so desperate at receiver, dude. Antonio Brown had allegations. We're not going to get into too much details, but like allegations from women.
Mm-hmm.
This man was so desperate to get a receiver. He invited Antonio Brown to live in his house with his supermodel wife and like all his kids and his children, his daughter there, because he wanted him to be a teammate. So you literally have the backing of Tom Brady on the team. All you have to do is stick next to him, play hard, do all the good stuff. Like
it's so simple, man.
It is the simplest thing to do. Like Tom Brady is your guy. Like he's gonna get you the ball whenever he can. And what happens in that first game? He targets him. You told me it was he targets him 8 times for 4 catches, and he catches a touchdown for that one game.
Yes,
and it was incredible. It was fun to watch. It was a great thing to see. So you think you try your best to move forward with this team, show everyone that I'm a serious guy and that I am determined to be a future Hall of Famer to win this.
Right.
I'm gonna make it work with this team. And what does he do, Jose?
He throws it away.
He throws it away.
Completely throws it away. Yeah.
He just throws it away. He ends up being big shocker, a hassle to deal with for the team. He decides not to show up to practice. The team decides to try to suspend him, and I do believe they try to suspend him, and he just didn't want to. He had the wrong mindset. Like he didn't want to do anything for the Patriots, so like they suspended him, and then he ends up getting released. I remember correctly.
Yes, he did. Yeah. So before we get to that, September 10th of 2019, Antonio Brown, was sued for sexual assault. So we went through that. September 15th of 2019, Antonio Brown plays for the Patriots, and then September 20th of 2019 is when they released him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this and it's because this came out of nowhere too. Like this allegation that was coming out, that was on the news all day, and the Patriots were forced to make a decision. By the way, I need to bring this up because this was bothers me about this guy. He got sued by a former chef because he refused to pay the bill. This guy had his chef come into his house, make him food like annually, like make him like everything. And when it came time to pay the man for his year of service, he's like, yeah, no, that's too much money. I don't want to. Like, what a guy. What a guy. Like, what a guy is like decides like, I'm not going to pay this guy.
I did not hear about that.
You did not know?
No, I did not hear about that. Oh my
He
goodness.
had a personal chef that was hired to make him, to like serve food for him, and he was very picky, and he would have this guy like 2 a.m. when he would come with his friends, like make him stuff like, hey, wake up, I want food, and like do stuff like that. And he wouldn't pay the man for his time, for the bill. Like,
Wow.
Just add it to the incredible stuff, laundry list that this guy does.
Jeez. Yeah, and I don't even think we're halfway through it. We just got into 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, so July 30th of 2020, Antonio Brown was suspended for 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brown received an 8-game suspension from the NFL, not due to the sexual assault allegations, but for a separate incident in January 2020. He was in violation of the NFL's personal conduct policy. Yeah, I mean, the suspension stemmed from Brown's January arrest connected to the attack of the driver of a moving company truck.
Burglary and battery, where he literally threw stuff at a driver's truck from his house like a crazy
Didn't he throw a bike off of his balcony?
No, he threw a bike. Yeah, he threw a bike at a truck.
He threw a bike off of his balcony into the truck.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, the initial Brown charge was felony assault and battery.
Yep.
And in March, charges handed down included a burglary of a vehicle, misdemeanor battery, and misdemeanor criminal mischief. So they basically brought it down to misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Right. And October 23rd of 2020, the Buccaneers decided to sign Antonio Brown. And this was right when Tom Brady had left the New England Patriots and he went over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
This was huge because Bruce Arians, the head coach of the Buccaneers, did not want him. He was a coach assistant for the Steelers. He knew what this guy was like. He knew the trouble that he was like. And he's like, I do not want him on my team. He is going to be a chaos and a menace to my team. And he ended up being right. But because Tom Brady wanted him, and like obviously you're the Bucs, you want to please Tom Brady, they brought him along.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah, so what they did for that amount of time, Antonio Brown will be paid a maximum of $2.5 million in 2020.
Yep.
Yeah, pennies in the league.
A veteran's minimum salary is what it was.
Right. So with most of that coming through incentives, right? His prorated base salary would be about $750K.
Yep. Minimum league salary.
Minimum league salary, like the bare minimum league salary. Yeah, so it's the league itself is not spending a whole lot of money on him because they knew the trouble that he would potentially bring. Right? They knew that this guy was a firecracker, and they knew that he was a risk to bring on, a huge risk to bring into the league. But either way, November 8th of 2020, Antonio Brown debuts with the Buccaneers. That night, he would see 10 plays, or could see 35 plays depending on the condition he's in and how he plays. So that's what Bruce Arians' game plan was for Antonio Brown specifically. He wanted to see what exactly he would do and how he would do it.
And let me bring in some context to the team so people to understand. So on the team, on receivers, you got Mike Evans, the team's leading receiver, who had gotten 1,000 receiving yards every season. He still has that streak going.
Right.
In his first 7 years into the league, he is a team leader. The guy, all he wanted to do was win, and he was willing to sacrifice some of his personal stats to bring Antonio Brown along in order to have his team lead to victory. You have the top number 1 receiver, big guy, can catch 50-50 balls, guy 6'4", 220 pounds.
You also had a solid number 2 in Chris Godwin,
yes, sir,
as well. Yeah, so you had him. In the trifecta that was Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans. We're going to be speaking a lot more to Mike Evans' leadership abilities as well as his compassion for his teammates later on into this segment. But for right now, we're still going to stick to Antonio Brown. December 2nd, he was pretty quiet from that incident onto this next one that I am about to mention. December 2nd of 2021, Antonio Brown was suspended for supplying the NFL with a fake vaccination card.
Yep.
Yeah. So they suspended him for... what was it?
I believe it was a couple of games, not too much.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a couple games. It was pretty short. It was a minor offense, right? In the league, especially with how new that entire situation was for all of us, not just the NFL players, not just athletes, but everybody in the world. Yeah, it was a very new situation, so I understand that it would have been a very short suspension. December 27th of 2021, Antonio Brown sounds off on reporters after returning from suspension. So he basically just went on camera and said, quote, you guys, it's all drama. You guys, it's all drama, Brown said. It's all about football. We're here to talk about Carolina, or I don't want to talk to you guys. Yeah, so he basically just went off on reporters that were asking him about the upcoming game.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so Go ahead.
No, I'm just laughing because like it's your guys' fault that you're talking about me. What have I done to be brought up so much in the public?
What have I done exactly?
After all we've heard about it so far, it's just fun to me. Go on, Jose.
No, it is. It is. It's just silly.
Yeah,
it really is. I don't get it. But January 2nd of 2022, going into the new year, Antonio Brown. This was the incident that just sealed his NFL career forever. I don't care who comes up to me. I don't care who asks me. I don't care who tells me otherwise. This is the end of Antonio Brown's career.
He will never, ever play for another team after what he pulled.
Yeah.
To the goal.
January 2nd of 2022, Antonio Brown takes his shirt off, his pads, his jersey in the middle of the game against the New York Jets because he was frustrated that they were losing. Right, and apparently, allegedly, he was frustrated that he wasn't getting as many targets for that particular game. Right, so what the guy does is he takes his jersey off, takes his pads off, takes his shirt off, throws it into the crowd, runs out of the field in the middle of the game, peace signs everybody, right, as he's exiting, with a supposed, mind you, a supposed what was it, ankle?
No, it was a knee.
It was a knee injury. A supposed knee injury, but he was okay, just strutting out.
It was an ankle. It wasn't. It was okay. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought it was an ankle.
Okay.
But with a supposed ankle injury, he was able to run out the field. Dude
jumping jacks.
While
he's on the sideline.
That's right. I forgot about that. Dude jumping jacks in the end zone as well before he struts his happy ass out of the field. Right. So, needless to say, that's the end of his football career. He is never going to see the green again.
Well, let me provide a little more context to that situation.
Go ahead.
You did. So, Rob Gronkowski, best friend of Tom Brady. People who don't know, just Google him. You probably know him from Gronk. He's like the Gronk. He's literally known for playing football and being a party boy.
He's from U of A.
Yeah, he's from the U of A.
Yeah.
Only decent thing they've come out of that university. Okay,
that football team.
Yeah. Okay, so Gronk was having issues 2 games prior, the Jets game. Not the game after, but 2 games prior.
That's right.
He was dropping passes.
Yeah.
He was dropping passes. It was against the Saints. You mentioned it. It's one of your favorite games when they got shut out by the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, it is one of my favorite games, not just
football-wise.
Just football-wise in general. I had no say in the team. I had no say in the games, but what the New Orleans Saints defense did to stop that Tampa Bay team, one of the highest scoring team of last season, was incredible. Going off topic a little bit, but I thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, no, of course. No. But the key thing is he was dropping passes from Tom Brady, and naturally, Tom was mad. Tom was pissed. So he's like, no, why are you doing this? So when Antonio comes back, he's like, he has an ankle injury, but he's like, I guess I can trot out, see what happens. What happens? Tom Brady's feeding him the ball the whole game, feeding him the ball, getting him targets, getting him good stats so that he could do it. And he's like, oh, I'm great. And then they ask him for the next Jets game. He's like, hey, are you good to play? Mind you, he just got all this, like, yeah, who are you kidding? Of course I'm great to play. Like, I'm doing good. Like, I'm getting whatever. Like, it's not feeling as bad. Okay, good. This game plan, you're going to be a little bit off here. Like, we're going to try to find the open man. So what the Jets do to try to stop the Bucs, they singled Gronk. So people who don't know what singling means is that you have one person on this guy. You have one person covering him the whole game. To give context on Gronk, the man is 6 foot 6 inches tall. He is 260 pounds.
Yeah.
The man can run. So
he's fast
huge.
too, yeah.
He's huge. So to put one guy on him to try to cover him is not a good matchup. So what does Tom Brady do naturally? Oh, you have one guy on Gronk? Okay, I'm going to give the ball to Gronk.
Yeah.
Give it to him again until they change. Give it to him again. And who ends up getting mad in that game? Antonio Brown. Because he's not getting his targets. Going back to what we talked about at the very beginning, this guy was all about stats, not about winning. The Bucs were trying to find a way to win because they were down against the Jets.
Right.
I don't care. I want you to give me the ball. We're going to lose or we're going to win through me.
That's right.
And God bless Mike Evans, dude, who had the most patience with him. He tried so hard to not make Antonio Brown make the biggest mistake of his life.
Which was the testament to his leadership, to his compassion for the rest of his teammates. The most troublesome player on that team, but he still wanted him to come back. He was pining for him to stay on the field.
If you guys have the chance, please watch the video prior to him doing that because you'll see Mike Evans begging him to stay there. Not on his knees or anything, but like talking to him, telling him like it's all right, everything's okay.
Basically
like,
trying to talk him down.
He was trying to talk him through all of it, and that's what led to the infamous. What will be known for the rest of his NFL career. The guy who quit on his teammates, the guy who decided to quit on the field, the guy who got half naked on the field, decided to just leave, Uber it back because he has a promising rap career. Supposedly.
Which is what we were going to mention. As soon as he gets home, the first thing he does, what does he do? He releases a rap song.
And he releases a commercial supposedly about a documentary that's gonna happen about him. "Quote unquote documentary."
He's like, they're going to be talking about this in my Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and it's been how long and no mention of that?
Yeah, there's been no mention of that whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's been no producer that's called him whatsoever. I don't think it's going to happen ever at all.
No.
I mean, Aaron Hernandez got one, but because he's done some pretty heinous things. He did some horrible stuff, and that was the topic of the time was the effect of NFL injuries on the brain.
Yeah.
So we already have our documentary, Antonio Brown. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, it is needless to say that Antonio Brown's career is officially finished. And now he's coming out of the woodwork and saying, I have no plans for playing for next year. It's fine. If somebody decided to pick me up, I'm going to say, nah, it's all right. As if he has options.
The thing that he never understood, after the Raiders incident, nobody wanted to touch him. And I don't blame him. Like, you haven't even you haven't gone through an off season with the team. You haven't even made it to the beginning of the season, and you decided to quit on them. The only person who gave him any benefit of the doubt, and his last resort, was Tom Brady, the GOAT, one of the greatest teammates of all time, and he quit on him. And he honestly thinks, if he's this delusional, he honestly thinks, I can get another thing. It doesn't matter. Like I'm okay with Tom and whatnot. He doesn't understand that Tom was his last resort, and you quit on him. And he committed the cardinal sin, Jose, that you never ever do on the football field or on the basketball court, hockey ring, baseball diamond, anything. You never quit on your teammates. You never quit on your teammates, because once you do, it's over. No one wants to play with you. No one has any respect for you. It's done.
Because now they've seen the true person that you are.
Yeah.
They know that you are not their main priority.
Yeah, you're not gonna walk through. You're not gonna run through a brick wall like I would for you.
Right.
It's over. It's over. Like you're not gonna do that for me. Get out of here.
Exactly.
Everybody hates him. It's well aware what he did, and he's not gonna go anywhere. And he cost himself the Hall of Fame, Jose. They are never going to let him in after what he did to that in the middle of the game, that mockery to the NFL. He cost himself lots of money, lots and lots of money, lots more fame, and he cost himself his legacy.
Exactly.
And people want to,
and this is what he wanted from the very beginning, was to have that very legacy.
And people want to assort this to like CTE because of the hit that Montez Burfict gave him back in 20, I believe it was 14 or 15 in the playoff game, where he got knocked out. I'm gonna curse. I don't care. Bullshit. Okay, because players who have CTE don't do that amount of antics. Don't do any of that. It's ridiculous when I hear people say that. I'm like, no, he has issues of his own, but don't blame it because of football. That's because of who he is. That's how big of an ego he has, and that's how he views himself.
Exactly.
So if people say that, I'm like, no. I will fight you to the moon on that.
That is a very good way of putting it. Now, we've gone over time on this segment, but that doesn't mean that anything that we said.
It needed to be said.
Exactly. That doesn't mean anything that we said was unintentional. We had to mention everything.
Yeah.
So once again, with all that being said, Antonio Brown's NFL career is now officially done. It's over. We are never going to hear his name being announced on a football field again. So right after this segment, we are now moving on to Ryan Fitzmagic or Fitztragic, depending on who you ask.
Yep.
All right. Do not go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
All right, now everyone, with our last segment of RJ Talks in this 11th episode, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has been all over the woodwork in the league. He has retired after 17 seasons, and he is a hometown athlete. Ricardo, he's from Gilbert, Arizona.
He is a hometown kid, born and brewed in Arizona. There's few and far between that make it to the professionals, but when they do, we got to give them the props for their doing so. And we have to mention this guy because some people might say, like, well, if he's like okay, why are you guys mentioning him? Because his story is just crazy. Well, not crazy. It's incredible because he's one of the guys that's the definition of a mediocre quarterback throughout his career, through and through.
Right.
And that's not because he had just mediocre stats all throughout his career. It's because he had great moments and horrible moments, great moments, bad moments, great moments, good moments, and it was literally back and forth in between seasons, sometimes in between games. Like, it was incredible to watch. So we have to mention this guy before as he's retiring because he is someone a lot of NFL fans will know. And let's get right to it, man. Let's see what we got with him.
Yeah, it seems like his season is just like watching a movie. It just takes turns every now and then.
Yes, it is.
Every now and then. But he went to college in Harvard. He was picked up in the NFL in 2005. The 7th round pick, 250.
Mm-hmm.
That was the overall pick. And he's still getting all this notoriety. Yeah. Usually if you have somebody that's picked up in the latter half of the 5th round, do we ever hear their names again?
No, we never hear their names again unless they make a huge play, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. So unless they make a huge play, the fact that he has stuck around for this long is pretty interesting. So that's why we thought it would be necessary to bring him up.
I'll be honest, Jose, I did not know this man existed until I watched him become the starter in Buffalo. Let's keep going.
Yeah, the starter in Buffalo in 09?
Yeah.
So it's worth mentioning that Ryan Fitzpatrick has been everywhere in the NFL, it seems like.
The definition of a journeyman quarterback.
Exactly. He's a nomad. Yeah, he is definitely a nomad. In 2005 and 6, he played for St. Louis, if I see that correctly. Yeah, so the Rams when they were still in St. Louis. In 2008, he started off with Cincinnati with the Bengals. From 2009 to 2012, he was with the Buffalo Bills. In 2013, he was with the Tennessee Titans. In 2014, he was with the Houston Texans. 15 and 16, he was with the New York Jets. 2017 and 2018, he was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 2019 and 2020, he was with Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, wrapping up his career in 2021, he was with the Washington football team, who are now called the Commanders.
They're a huge mess altogether. We're gonna need 2 segments to get into them. Let's move on with
let's move on, especially with Carson Wentz starting up on their team now.
That'll be a fun segment, but we're here to talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick, people.
So take it away, Ricardo. What do you have?
Okay, so the way that when Ryan Fitzpatrick made his name known was playing for the Buffalo Bills. To you young NFL fans who just know the Bills were just great right now, they were a laughingstock. They were at the bottom of the barrel for the AFC East for years. There were years that the Dolphins were better than them. Then the Jets were definitely better than them as well. Like the Buffalo Bills, before Josh Allen, let me just give an example to people, but Buffalo Bills were that little piece of turret stuck on the edge of Tom Brady's boot. That's who they were. Yeah. That is who they were. Yeah. That is, I'm right on this.
I know
I'm right on this. That is exactly who they were for years. And the spark that they got in between those miserable years, what's from Ryan Fitzpatrick? He showed potential to be a good quarterback. He could pass it deep. Stats not that impressive when you look at them, but when you watch the games play, he could make some plays. Like, you could see he had some talent, and that's what got him to be the starter in Buffalo, and that's what got him to be a big name in the NFL. Now, the problem with Ryan Fitzpatrick, he had great flashes, but could he have the consistency to keep that talent going?
That was the issue. Yep.
The answer was no.
Right.
One game, he was looking like he was on verge to become one of the next all-caliber quarterbacks. Next game, he looks like he should become on the scout team quarterback with the way he played, with the interceptions. And that was really his main problem, and what stopped him from becoming a starter, like a consistent starter all throughout his career, is because the inconsistency of Ryan Fitzpatrick. And you saw it everywhere he went. That was the crazy part. Like, you never saw him play with a team where you weren't like, oh, that was a good game.
Right.
Or that was a good string of games going along. It was, oh, good games. Yes. But also horrible games.
Yeah.
And that's just who he was. That's just who he was as a player. And there's no shame in that. Everyone's a player who they are, but we know the truth about Ryan Fitzpatrick. These teams obviously did not, because they thought he was going to be their veteran to lead into the limelight.
Yeah, because he had those flashes of being very great. It was like it's like watching M. Night Shyamalan's filmography. right? Yeah, so you have some great movies and you have just god-awful movies. Yeah, so with Ryan Fitzpatrick, you could definitely see that. Like, you have some of these seasons where some of these stats don't look that bad. Like, for example, in 2014 with Houston, he threw 197. He completed 197 passes out of 312. He had a completion percentage of 63.1. That's not too bad, right? And in a passing league, he threw for nearly 2,500 yards. Pretty good, not pretty solid in a single season. And he brought his interceptions down to 8. Not too bad. Also threw 17 touchdowns with Houston. So it seemed like he was fitting into that system quite well. The thing with him is that back in Buffalo, in 2011 to be specific, his completion percentage was good, and he threw for almost 4,000 yards. But with that came 23 interceptions.
Yep.
That season.
That's what it was. He was before Mr. 30 for 30, Jameis Winston. He was one of the OG Mr. Interception quarterbacks. That's who he was.
Right.
That's who he was. One game he would have a good game, like 3 touchdowns, but it would come with like an interception or 2 interceptions. And the other game, 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown. Like, that's who he was.
Yeah.
That's who he was as a player.
So let me ask you this, Ricardo.
Yeah.
Do you think a lack of a steady system was the problem for him? So with him being all over the place in the NFL, NFC and AFC, do you think that if he would have stayed with one team for 5+ years, do you think that he would have developed as a quarterback?
I'm happy you asked me this question, because this is how I see him. If he had a model of consistency with a good team around him, with a good coach, good players, I could honestly see him being a better version of Kirk Cousins. Like, I could honestly see him being a better version of Kirk Cousins. So like, that's not incredible, but that's decent. Like, that's a good start. That's like an average starter above the league, as opposed to the journeyman backup eventually starter that he became. Like, if he had consistency, that's the ceiling I could see for him, honestly, dude. I don't see him a guy like leading a franchise to be a good. I don't see him even being a good game manager, honestly, because he throws so many interceptions.
Right.
So like, that's who I see him. I could see him becoming a good version of Kirk Cousins, and that's about it. To the people who don't know Kirk Cousins, he really quickly, not too much to branch on topic. Yeah. He is Mr. Mediocreness as a quarterback. He has great stats because he decides to, like, I'm going to play it safe and get the great completions, but I will not risk it to win the game. And even then, he has some interceptions that go along with him. He has one of the best receiving cores in the league, top 5 at least, arguably, with the Minnesota Vikings, with Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and I forget the name of the tight end. I don't think it's Kyle Rudolph, but it's another tight end.
Right.
Pretty much saying, and he has Dalvin Cook as his running back. That team should be a playoff contender automatically, with a couple moves away from being a Super Bowl contender.
But the problem is
the quarterback,
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Right.
So, all that being said, with Ryan Fitzpatrick being a better version of Kirk Cousins, it's not saying much, but it's something to say that that's the player, the best version of him that I see him becoming. Yeah,
that's what he could have been.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, him jumping around to all these different teams and learning system after system after system just brought a lot of inconsistency on his part, right? He never saw one team for more than 4 years.
Yep.
Yeah, the longest time that he spent was with Buffalo, and that was 4 years.
Yep.
And a lot of these other teams, he had spent 1 year, 2 years. So the fact that he played nomad for that long, that could have contributed to the fact that he was mediocre. However, you saw him with Buffalo, and you saw that he had a pretty steady system there. Yeah. He started making a name for himself, right? A round 7 quarterback coming out of the woodwork and, putting up some decent plays. Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden, as soon as he starts to get the shine on him, this is what happens. Is that all these numbers start to come down and his INTs start going up.
And to the people who don't know, this was the best career year that he had. Ironically, he had it with the New York Jets. And he beat the Patriots in overtime that year to get him into the playoffs. So people thought that they had their savior, their guy. Like, he was on it. He was great. He was on a roll. He had a great year for him. He had almost 4,000 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. But he has more touchdowns than interception ratio, but it's still pretty high. And what did the Jets do? We're going with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's our guy. He's our starter. And what does this man do? He throws 5 interceptions in one of the early games against the Kansas City Chiefs. And no touchdowns. He threw 5 interceptions. Dude, he threw 4 interceptions in a row when they gets the ball back. So that means when the team intercepted him, the very next chance he got to throw a pass, another interception. 4 times in a row. If that's not Ryan Fitzpatrick in a nutshell, dude, I don't know what is. Like that's exactly who he was. And good journeyman quarterback. It's just
seemed like a pretty decent guy altogether as well. It's just this is what it led to.
Yeah,
is this lack of consistency was his great downfall.
Yeah,
right. Had he not been so inconsistent, even then his skill level would have been, a little better than mediocre. Yeah, you would think.
Yeah, no, and that's who he was, and like give him all the credit in the world. He took the job in knowing he was a backup, and whenever he got the chance to go on the field, when he did his best, he tried his best, and he did shine on occasion, but like. In those final years, like closer to Tampa Bay, when they chose Jameis Winston over him, I don't know if you remember that, but
yes,
they had, and to their detriment too, because they were winning games with Fitzpatrick at quarterback, like lighting up teams with those receivers.
Yeah.
But he was just born to be a backup, and that's who he was, and he lived his career 17 seasons. Man made it. If you ask an NFL fan, they'll know who Ryan Fitzpatrick is. If you ask like a good good NFL fan, not too hardcore, I'll be like, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Oh yeah, he played with such and such. Well, guys in his position in round 7, you don't even know who their names are. You don't even know what they do.
So the fact that he was able to come into the league in the position that he was in, he still made a name for himself. Got to say that's still time well spent.
Yeah,
he left a name for himself.
He had a long career in the NFL, which not a lot of players could say.
Right,
long career,
17 seasons.
Yeah.
Well, we got to give him all the credit in the world for that. And with that, we are going to be cutting this segment short since we spent a whole lot of time talking about Antonio Brown. But either way, we still got this to about an hour.
We still got this to the hour.
Yeah, we got this down to the hour. And with all that being said, thank you guys so much for listening once again.
Really quickly though, sorry to cut you off. I do want to say we do need to pay the respects for rest in peace, Marion Barber, former Dallas Cowboys running back who was found dead in his room a couple days ago. Man died at the age of 38. Very tragic. I remember watching him play with the Cowboys. He was a good running back. Just wanted to say rest in peace and prayers to his family, man.
Yeah. Rest in peace to that man. Yeah. Thanks for the respects for that.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay. And with all that being said, thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow our Instagram at RJTalks_11. Show us some love. All right. So thank you guys so much. I'm Jose.
I'm Ricardo.
And this is the end of RJ Talks.
We'll be here next week.
Yes, we will.